Kamenenchev here with Tom Castleman, ready for another fun week of Salute Your Sports. A lot on the docket today, Tom. We got March Madness, Final Four is set, men's side, ladies' side as well. Man, this is the craziest tournament ever. I mean, it's crazy. There's no 1 seed in the Final Four. There's no 2 seed in the Final Four, in the men's side at least. That's pretty nuts. There's no UConn on the women's side. So all sorts of madness across the board. Cannot wait to get into that. Our championship predictions, take them with a grain of salt. I'll say this, though. Tom Castleman did have one Final Four team right. Let me tell you, I mean, I'll get into this in the next segment, actually, but I have some fun stats as to how crazy this bracket has been. Literally, there's a very small percent of the country that's actually picked a good bracket. Everyone has just picked a less bad bracket than others, because everyone's bracket is beyond busted. We'll have some Lamar Jackson news, requesting a trade, looking more and more like Lamar Jackson will never be a Baltimore Raven ever again. So we'll see where he'll end up, though. What's a good spot for Lamar? Maybe something crazy happens. He goes back to Baltimore, but I doubt it, Tom. We'll have our baseball preview today, the entire preview, MVP, AL/NL Cy Young, AL/NL MVP. And then, of course, we'll have our divisional breakdowns, who wins each division, who gets the wild cards, who wins the World Series, recording on a Wednesday afternoon. We are actually, Tom, under 24 hours away from opening day. Cannot wait to get started. How you doing today?
Doing fantastic. In Chicago, spring isn't quite in the air yet. It's still one of those days where if you're going to the ballpark, coming out, this week and next week, get the funnel cake, get the hot chocolate, get whatever you can to stay warm out there. But of course, baseball is going to be top of mind and a big part of the show. But of course, as you mentioned, the leadoff is the madness, and I have been fortunate enough this year to be the last man standing, the least bloodied in not one but two brackets, which is kind of nice. One going all the way back to high school. Which is one of those years where it's just like, man, it's been both tough, but also really, really fun, because you look and compare what last year's Final Four was, where you had Kansas against, I forgot who they played in the Final Four, but you had Duke, UNC.
Yep.
Kansas played, do you remember? Villanova, that was it.
Yeah, Blue Bloods.
You have 4 Blue Bloods, 4 of the top biggest brand name programs. This year you have FAU, Florida Atlantic University,
first Final Four.
San Diego State, their first Final Four. UConn, a blue blood, they've been here, and it's kind of remarkable how many times that UConn has been here and won titles, because you've got the Jim Calhoun era, you've got Emeka Okafor, Ben Gordon won title, Kevin Ali is the head coach, and now with Dan Hurley. So 3 coaches over the past 20 years taking UConn to the Final Four. It's kind of an interesting thing. I wonder what's going on behind the scenes there in terms of why that particular program has success when you have so many different coaches. And then, of course, Miami, Florida, the Hurricanes in the Final Four as well. So it's been an incredibly fun run where none of the favorites, I mean, going into this, when we were talking about this weeks ago, it was, I don't feel good about anybody winning this championship.
We were right.
This tournament.
We were right? We were right about that.
But the way things have kind of played out now, having 4 games put behind us, I'm feeling more and more confident about who I think is going to win this overall. So in terms of just kind of talking about, no 1 seeds in the Final Four, no 1 seeds in the Elite 8 for the first time ever. What's been kind of like the best part, or why is this the craziest kind of tournament? And what have your favorite stories been up to this point?
Well, I think the Final Four field for me is the craziest story. I mean, obviously we had the 16 seed, Fairleigh Dickinson taking down Purdue, second time a 16 seed's taken down a 1. We had Princeton in the Sweet 16. But the storyline is that the Final Four is the craziest we've ever seen. You just said it. History of the Elite 8. There's never been no 1 seed in the Elite 8. We're talking no 1 seed in the Elite 8, Tom. There's not a 1 or a 2 in the Final Four. Actually, there's not a 3 either. It's all 4, 5, 5, or 9. Florida Atlantic entering this tournament had never won an NCAA tournament game. San Diego State, never been to the Final Four. Miami, never been to the Final Four. I mean, this is the craziest thing. There's been A lot of great stories, a lot of great upsets along the way. But the Final Four field is the craziest and the best part of it. UConn, by the way, Tom, entering the Elite Eight. They were the only one in the Elite Eight that ever had a national championship. So basically, I mean, I know Texas is a bigger school, but they're not really a basketball school, if we're being honest. So the fact that, we had one out of the final 8 teams is a basketball school, UConn, that's it. That was it. That was the only team. And they're a 4 seed. So and look at some of these teams here. I got it written down here. 2 Big East teams in the Final Four, UConn and Creighton. They finished 3rd and 4th in the league, respectively. They weren't even the best in their own league, and they're both in the Final Four. So San Diego State, the first team ever out of the Mountain West. I mean, that's literally a storyline. Mountain West, always terrible in the tournament. SDSU makes the Final Four. I mean, it's crazy how many upsets there are. And I'll give you a few bracket notes. This is what I was going to, I teased releasing this info. So we're in a 6-person bracket that you won. You were the only one in the bracket that had a single Final Four team. You won the bracket with one Final Four team in UConn. I was in an 8-person bracket where the winner had no Final Four teams. Our work bracket. So I have an ESPN work bracket where they tell you ESPN percentile of the country. The guy winning that pool right now is 99.8 percentile in the country. Guess how many Final Four teams he has?
None.
One.
One
Final Four team, and his bracket's better than 99.8% of the country. By the way, he's got Miami. He's a Miami fan. He likes the Hurricanes. So that's a biased pick, if we're being honest. I do love Jim Larinaga, though, the Fighting Jim Larinagas. But this is hands down the craziest March Madness. I feel like this is a cliche we always use. March Madness, upsets. You don't know what's going to happen. It's crazy. This year, though, is truly unlike any other. We've never seen this. We've never seen an Elite Eight without a 1 seed. A lot of cool upsets, as always. A lot of cool stories. A lot of emotion. I mean, I really liked, obviously, K-State had a nice run. Their coach addressing FAU in the locker room was special. I did actually really like the K-State point guard. I told you about him last week. Man put on a show. By the way, he's a 5th-year senior coming out of Little Rock. That's a nice little story. But the best story for me, Marquise Noel, by the way. Best story, though, is the Final Four field and how wide open it is. Specifically, I think FAU is a great one because most people had Memphis in that 8-9 game, and FAU never won a tournament game before. They're in the Final Four, which, by the way, they've got the best record in the country. I know they play in a lower league, but there's no team with a better record than FAU.
I'll be touching on that, yeah.
They are winners. They know how to win games.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for me, the biggest story that's kind of been with this tournament, and the reason why going in, I was so uncertain. It's not like a year where we have that Anthony Davis Kentucky team that's going to be running the table, or that undefeated Gonzaga year where it was like Gonzaga or Baylor, pick your fighter type of thing, is that with the transfer portal adjusting to the way that it is, students don't have to sit out that extra year when they move from one D1 team to another. They can pretty much play the next season. And so what we're kind of seeing with that, combined with a lot of guys having that extra COVID year, essentially, where it was a make good on, hey, we recognize that the 2020 and 2021 seasons aren't really full seasons. You guys have an extra year of eligibility, is we're seeing kind of a more parodied system than there has been in the past. Because you combine, there's a lot of really good, talented college players who may or may not be going pro, but what they want more than anything else is the opportunity to play and the opportunity to show out. And when you're on, say, like a Duke or a UNC, and you basically just have to wait your turn because transferring to another program is going to be such a hassle. It's going to take an extra year on your student athlete career. Now guys don't have that same impediment. I mean, look at Caleb Love actually going from UNC. I don't think he's picked where he's going yet, but he's entered the transfer portal.
Mizzou, baby. He's a Missouri kid in high school basketball. Well, he hasn't picked them. I'm saying he should pick them.
Oh, he should pick. Okay,
that
gotcha.
would be fun. That would be fun. I actually covered him at the state championship, 2019 state championship against Rockbridge, and he lost the state championship. He was, I think, a sophomore or a junior. I'm not sure. He wasn't a senior, but I covered him in the state title game, and they lost. He had a crazy shot from his legs underneath the ground, made it. So yeah, but anyway, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. It's always nice to have those little connections kind of showing up, especially because you've got that reporting background. But I guess my overarching larger point is the fact that the common consensus is TV executives and the network guys love upsets early, and then they want chalk. They want those name brand programs late. And we're not getting that this year because, quite frankly, the difference between name brand and not name brand program isn't that great. And in fact, you mentioned FAU having the best record in the country. The NCAA publishes something called the net rating. It's something that they use heavily to help weight who actually makes the field. Just for a quick point of reference, entering the NCAA tournament, Florida Atlantic, with a 29-3 record, was the 13th ranked team in the net rating, yet they ended up with a 9 seed. So if we're thinking about, little bit of a Cinderella story, how did we get here? We got here by the NCAA seemingly not really paying attention to their own program, their own algorithm, their own criteria as far as putting the best teams in the best positions, because Florida Atlantic comes from, what is that, Conference USA?
And they're moving this year, by the way. Not AAC, I think.
Not even having a tournament win, as you mentioned, that the NCAA let their own biases get in the way. So that's the sort of thing where it's, talking about these mid-majors, these smaller name programs, not necessarily small. I mean, Creighton's a significant program. Miami is a significant program. But letting some of these other schools actually have a little bit of a shot at being appropriately seeded. I mean, we don't necessarily need to see another Big 10, Big 12, the 7th, 8th, ninth best team in a big conference. Let's see some more of these teams that, maybe they lose that automatic bid in their conference tournament, but let's see them get into this tournament as well, because they have been showing more and more over the past couple of years, whether it's VCU and their big run. I mean, George Mason, talked about Jim Larrañaga, their run, Florida Atlantic. We're seeing more and more of this happening. I think that the big story is give the, quote, little programs a chance, because the difference between David and Goliath is not as big as it once was.
Yeah, and real quick, just to add to that, I mean, the transfer portals, the whole one and done. Now some of these high school kids, some of them can actually go play, in the G League or in Australia or who knows where. So a lot of these like top name kids, I mean, we used to have, these third, fourth year seniors, these great players playing in their fourth year. And a lot of the best players don't play more than 1, maybe 2 years. And what happens, Tom? I mean, let's be honest. A freshman's a freshman. You might be a talented player, but you're what? A 19, 18, 19-year-old kid? It'll take a little time to get adjusted. That limelight in March Madness, you're not going to be Anthony Davis, like you mentioned, who was, he was a man among boys in college. But, like, that's just the fact of it. The way the system is geared, we are going to continue to see more upsets. Now, do I think there's going to be a 1 seed next year in the Final Four? Yeah, I think there will be. But there might not be 4. There might not be 3. We might not even have 2. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But it's going to be we're going to keep seeing this. I don't know if it's going to be to this extent, but we'll keep seeing a lot of these upsets. And I've said this multiple times, but there's parity across the board in all of sports right now. The gap seems to have shrunk. Just the way the sports are right now. The best of the best. You're still the best. You still have your top dogs, but the middleman and the lower man are better. I mean, these kids grow up, with the best coaches, the best systems. They've got access to all these things now that they didn't have before. So sports are evolving, and I think, which is great, because I think the average player now is better. So it's exciting to see all this parity. But yeah, you're never going to have the Blue Bloods dominating as much as they did, because they simply don't get those third, fourth year seniors. There's no Tyler Hansborough in this NCAA tournament. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I guess that brings us to, we got a Final Four. We got a championship game coming up. We got to pick these things. So let's start out with the big matchup. And by big, I mean big name. We've got Connecticut and we have Miami, Florida. Are you going with the Canes to continue a little bit of an upset run, or are you going with the Yukon Huskies? Like, quite frankly, I'm going to be.
I know you are, Tom. So on paper, UConn should win this tournament. I just
Mhm.
simply put, on paper, on this paper, this is my dental records, by the way. Disregard the cavities, but on paper, UConn should win the tournament. Guess what? On paper so far, Miami underdog against Indiana, underdog versus Houston, underdog versus Texas, and they won all of these games, all of them. Who cares? The Fighting Jim Larrañaga's great guard play. Miller, the man didn't even miss a shot the last game. How
Mhm.
spectacular was that? Then you have UConn on the other side. They were what? I think they were number one earlier this season at one point. Then they struggled a lot. It's tough to say. Could go either way. I know you're convinced it's UConn. I'm going to
Mm.
pick UConn, but I say with like 51, 52%
Mm.
certainty. I'm going to pick UConn to win the whole thing. I'll tell you right now, but I would lean the field versus UConn. I mean, they're playing the best right now. They've got the most
Yes.
talent. They've got the best overall team. I think there's no doubt about that. But we've seen them do it this year alone. I mean, they got off to a great start, then they struggled a lot. But what they've done right now, what I've seen with my eyes in this tournament, opening round, 87-63 win. Second
Mhm.
round, 70-55. Third game, 88-65 against a good Arkansas team that, by the way, was in two straight Elite Eights. Then they demolished the really good Gonzaga team, 82-54. That wasn't even a game. They're clicking on both sides of the ball. Closest game so far was a 15-point win. It's one of the
Mhm.
most dominant NCAA tournament runs of all time. Look, they've got the perfect balance, a great big man down low, Adama Sanogo, and then Jordan Haskins, a great shooting guard. So I'm going to cheer for Miami because I love Jim Larrañaga. He was that great coach for George Mason in that run. But I do like Wong and Miller as the guards. But I'm going to pick UConn. They've got a better overall team, a better overall depth down low and in the perimeter. So give me UConn to beat Miami in the Final Four. It'll be close, though. I don't think it's going to be. I think they'll finally have a single-digit game.
Mm.
Miami, though, a lot of resilience. They were down double digits in the second half against Texas. Came back without making a three to win the tournament. That was nuts.
Yeah, I'm going with UConn as well because Dama Sanogo has been phenomenal. But even like in the last game, he wasn't playing quite as much. They were going to cling on the freshman, a big man behind him because it is Ramadan, so he is fasting during the day. But they're able to lean on depth
Point.
with their team. They've got Clingan played phenomenal, just rim running, just completely outworking Drew Timme multiple times
The
throughout the game.
stash.
It was an absolute clinic, and that's what UConn has been doing in every single game, is putting on a clinic more so than any other team. They have been consistently ahead. And like they've played some games that have been close up to a point, but we see that after that point that they pull ahead and then they stay ahead, which shows really, really good focus because a big story of this tournament, as you mentioned with Miami, has been teams that go on runs. I mean, Arkansas went on a run against Kansas to make it to the Elite Eight. We saw a run where UCLA was ahead of Gonzaga. Gonzaga then pulled ahead by a pretty decent margin, and then UCLA stormed back. We haven't seen anybody really do that against UConn because they've been pretty much laser focused on the defensive side of the court. So I feel a real confidence saying UConn's going to win this game against Miami. You mentioned that they did struggle a little bit. A little interesting note, all of their losses have been in the Big East. The UConn Huskies have not lost a single game outside of conference play, and that was within a stretch where they lost 6 games in 6 out of 8 games. So all those losses were just compact right together. So it really feels like something was clicking, something was working, got out of sync, and they've been humming pretty much ever since. So I've been feeling really, really good about the Huskies. I mean, I know that they lost that title game to Marquette in the Big East as well, but again, outside of their own conference, where you have a little bit more in-depth scouting, a little bit better familiarity between coaches and styles and what you're trying to do, I like the Huskies a lot in this one. Shifting to the other side of the Final Four, we've got San Diego State and Florida Atlantic. I feel almost badly picking between these two teams because I am really excited for and happy about the success that these programs are having. I mean, I was a fan of the Stephen Fisher San Diego teams when you had Kawhi Leonard there. When you had, I'm blanking on his first name, last name was Franklin. I think it was Jamal Franklin. They've had some pretty good players, some pretty good programs. I was like, oh, this can be a dark horse pick. And finally, the Mountain West is going through just to meet up with Florida Atlantic, which has been a great story as well. This game, I feel, is a good bit more evenly matched because, as I mentioned in the net ranking, and also if you look at like KenPom, which is a fun resource that I like to use, not that much of a difference between San Diego State and Florida Atlantic. So I think we're going to have a really close one. I think the betting market reflects that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree it's a toss-up. I do think it could go either way. I'm going to go FAU because it's just a feeling. There's something special about this team. 35-3, best record in the NCAA. SDSU's 31-6. By the way, good news for UConn that Creighton didn't beat SDSU because they only lose in the Big East. Don't want to play Creighton. But for me, FAU is simply more explosive than San Diego State. You look at the numbers. They average 78.5 points per game. San Diego State just 71.5. We just saw the last game FAU put up 79. San Diego State had 57 in their last win. I'm not really sure they can stop the balance of FAU. That's a very interesting team because, we think of March Madness, we think of superstars. There is no superstar on Florida Atlantic. I don't think they'll have a single NBA player on that program. They don't have a single guy that you look at that man can put on a show. They have 6 guys averaging between 7 and 14 points and no one averaging more than 14. Right now, though, the key to March Madness is guys stepping up at the right time. One guy that has stepped up, Vladislav Golden, the big man for FAU, had some monster dunks, some big blocks the last game, 14 points, 13 rebounds. Those are well above his averages on the season. By the way, you talk about streaky basketball. Florida Atlantic's won 11 in a row. This is the hottest team in the country. I guess you can say UConn in this tournament, but if you want to predate the tournament, FAU is absolutely rolling. By the way, talking about betting spreads, they're a 2-point underdog, but they are 24-11-1 on the spread this year. San Diego State 19-15-2. So 24-11-1. That speaks to not only has March Madness, the committee, underestimated FAU, not only had, Vegas is underestimating FAU as well on the betting spreads. So pretty sure that we've been picking against FAU all tournament long, maybe with the exception of that Fairleigh Dickinson game. I'm not doing it again. Give me FAU as a 2-point dog to win outright and cover. Not fully confident at all in it. In fact, Tom, I've been betting lately. I've been on fire in the NBA of late. I've probably won 9 of my last 10 NBA bets, and I've lost almost every March Madness bet. So betting locks of the week this week, there will be no more March Madness. It's been a bad run. I'm going back to the NBA because that's been hot for me. So I'm not very confident. So then, of course, since I won't pick it in betting locks, it's going to hit. But give me Florida Atlantic to win outright in this Final Four game.
Yeah, I'll go with Florida Atlantic as well, simply because they've shown that they can win in a variety of different styles. San Diego State has been winning all of their games pretty much by imposing their will, which does have its own merit. I mean, they were able to go out and just beat down a Charleston team that was pretty prolific on offense. Same thing against Furman. Surprisingly, same thing against Alabama. And then Creighton, which has been a really balanced team, you win that one. I'm going to go with Florida Atlantic, though, simply because, I mean, looking at their scores, their point differentials, I mean, a 1-point win over Memphis, a 3-point win over FAU, but they pretty handily took care of Tennessee. And I kind of equate Tennessee and San Diego State because they are similar in being really, really, really good on defense, but going through some scoring droughts on offense. And sometimes, good defense wins in college basketball, but every now and again you get a player who can just make a shot that breaks a scoring run, or even if you have a big scoring drought where your opponent's, keeping you from scoring, but they're not putting the ball in the hoop themselves, you can just get one or two shots to boost up that differential. So I like the Owls as well over the San Diego State Aztecs. But this one falls right in the category of a 50-50 coin flip for me. So that takes us to the championship game. I think we both have Huskies. We both have Owls. As I already said, how bullish I am on UConn. So is there any way that you could see Florida Atlantic, a team that has never, ever, prior to the season had never won a single NCAA tournament game, winning the whole enchilada in one season?
Look, Tom, I know I say that stat because it just makes the whole point of this crazy tournament, but let's be real. The current Florida Atlantic team has nothing to do with the history of FAU as a whole. I mean, those numbers are...
It's a fun story.
It's a fun story, but those numbers, that's not doing much for me. They absolutely can win. I mean, they've beaten teams that they should have lost to, all season long. They can win. It's possible. Would it surprise me if they win? Absolutely not. It wouldn't. With that said, at some point, the upsets have to stop, right? At some point, the bigger team has to win. I'm going to say UConn is going to win this title. I mean, they have simply better overall talent, better athletes. Look at Sanogo, the big guy, Haskins, the guard. Those are the two best players on the court. The two leading scorers on the team. They both score more points than anyone on FAU. So UConn, I'm going to pick UConn to win it all. I was just saying, gosh, UConn versus the field, and I said the field, but now I might pick UConn. I don't know what I feel better about UConn or the field. It's a pretty open tournament. I'm very wary to say that I'm confident whatsoever because on paper, chalk has not been winning. It's been a different type of tournament, and UConn has had its inconsistencies. The middle of the season, they were really bad. How do we know they don't lay a dud in this game? I don't know that. So I think Florida Atlantic certainly can win, but I'm going to pick UConn because they're simply more talented. That's the only thing I can come up with, Tom. They should win. So I'm going to pick it, right?
Yeah. Well, another team that ostensibly should win, at least as we're moving on to the women's side, the South Carolina Gamecocks. Has there been any reason why you would take the field over them? This has been a case where this is the number one overall program by a pretty long chalk. They've got a tough matchup with Caitlin Clark in Iowa. Caitlin Clark coming off of a phenomenal Elite Eight game, dropping a 40-point triple-double.
Won me my March Madness women's bracket, baby.
There you go.
Woo!
Proppers
Gotta take dubs where I can get them, Tom. You got the men's side. Women's bracket. I got a dub. What did Drew get? Nothing. Nada for Drew this year.
Drew gets shut out, although I think he won the Bowl Mania that we did. If memory serves. I don't remember exactly right.
Of course.
But yeah, South Carolina and Iowa is going to be a big game. And of course, we've got Virginia Tech and then Kim Mulkey and the LSU Tigers on the other side. So I think looking at the matchups, the markets say South Carolina is a double-digit favorite over Iowa. Any chance for the Hawkeyes? Any chance for the Tigers? Any chance for the Hokies to win this? Or are you sticking with South Carolina all the way, because more so than any team in either of the tournaments, maybe over the past couple of years, they have proven that they are a one-of-one type of program.
Yeah, they've won every game this year. So, I would pick them over the field, but there's always a chance. There was the year UConn won every game, and they lost in the Final Four. On the ladies' side, there was the year Kentucky won every game. They lost in the Final Four. South Carolina has had some close games. It's not like they're winning by 20 points every game. The way they could lose this next game is simply the greatness of Caitlin Clark. She's, by the way, if you don't watch women's basketball, she's the equivalent of Stephen Curry on the basketball court for the ladies. 41 points, 12 assists, 10 rebounds in that Elite Eight game. She's the best player in the country. I think she's I mean, she's going to be great in the WNBA. I know Villanova, Maddie Siegrist was really good too, but Caitlin Clark's the best overall player. So, yeah, that's the way they can lose. She lights it up. They can't stop her. But I think that, again, we're talking about UConn big man guard combo. They've got it at South Carolina. Boston and Cook. Boston dominant down low. Cook a great guard. Dawn Staley's a great coach. So I'm going to pick them to win the whole thing. I'm cheering for Iowa, though, because I love Caitlin Clark. I'm hoping Iowa wins this whole thing. And I'm going to pick a little upset, mini upset in the other Final Four game. I'll take LSU over Virginia Tech. All SEC final. Kim Mulkey, been there, done that with Baylor. Actually, one of the first college games I've ever covered. Technically, I was a student journalist at the time, but I covered a Mizzou-Baylor women's basketball game as a freshman. This was actually for MUTV at the time. And it was, to this day, and I don't know if I've ever shared this story with you, to be honest. So to this day, one of the most epic press conferences I've ever been in. This is almost as good as you and Kim English, who, by the way, got hired at Providence. And maybe we'll tell that story as well while we're at it. But so this is, I believe it's senior day for Mizzou women's basketball. And they're playing Baylor, who's like top 5 in the country. They've got Brittany Griner on that Baylor team. Brittany Griner towering over me. I literally stood next to Brittany Griner, and I was like, oh, my God. So somehow, some way, Mizzou knocks off Baylor in that game. And another student journalist, not me, asked Kim Mulkey, was the crowd a factor in the win? Because it was the biggest crowd of the season for Mizzou at the time, pre-Sophie Cunningham era, by the way. Mizzou women's basketball, Tom, drawing about 1,000 fans a game. Baylor women's basketball can get 10,000, no problem. They actually have a pretty good, passionate following. Kim Mulkey starts yelling at the reporter, no, it wasn't a factor. That's a ridiculous question. This team plays so hard. The fans, we're used to playing in front of 10,000. This had nothing to do with the fans. In fact, the fans should support this team more. Mulkey goes on to tear apart this poor student reporter, tears apart the Mizzou fans, just goes off on like a 3-4 minute rant about how, the fans need to support this Mizzou program, how it had nothing to do with the fans, how it was all about her team not executing, blah, blah, blah. And she just, I'm telling you, she's yelling, Tom. She's going off. She's like, this is ridiculous. Bring some more passion, Mizzou Arena. I'm like, woo, woo. And I'm a freshman at the time. Like, I've seen Coach rants, but it's one thing when you see it on TV. It's another thing when you're there in the room. So that was definitely a special moment. She wears those crazy outfits she had in the last game. I think LSU makes the championship and plays South Carolina in that all SEC final. South Carolina ultimately wins the whole thing.
Yeah. LSU makes it and gets dusted. I'm right there with you. I think that's probably going to be the matchup as well on the women's side of the bracket. So we'll see if there's any March Madness magic left as far as upsets go on either side of the bracket. But it seems like you and I are going for what, at least at this point, can be considered chalk. If a 4 seed winning it all on the men's side could ever be considered chalk. We're going to pivot now to the NFL, where more details are coming out with the Lamar Jackson saga. So for a little bit of context, a little bit of timing, it has come out in recent reporting that Lamar Jackson had requested a trade from the Baltimore Ravens on March 2nd. So this is prior to the legal tampering, franchise tags being applied. And it was before the Ravens applied the non-exclusive tag on Lamar Jackson. So we're kind of in the situation now where it's, what's like, it feels like a little bit of an impasse. I know that I'm not using that word fully appropriately from the strict legal definition of the term. But we're in the situation now where we have several teams actively saying they are not interested in Lamar Jackson, which I find puzzling, very, very curious, because why would you not be interested in somebody who is, I think, solidly a top 10 quarterback in the NFL when it's so hard to find just a viable, decent starter? And you have the opportunity to go and get a good to great one, depending on how he's playing in that season. So, Common, where do you think the best landing spot would be for Lamar Jackson? We'll include Baltimore in this discussion as well. And where do you think he's eventually going to end up?
So as far as where it's going to end up, I have no idea. It's easy to get caught up in rumors and reading this and reading that. I read a little bit, but I'm not a huge fan of free agency, believe it or not, Tom. I just don't get caught up in where's this guy going to go. Let's play the rumor game. Let's see this. I mean, it is more interesting to see where I think he would go. That's in a way kind of interesting. But I mean, I'm not going to pretend here that I'm connected. I've got NFL sources.
For sure, yeah.
I don't. I mean, I can go and look at Adam Schefter's Twitter account and use that as my basis. That's not a bad place to look. But I'm not going to focus on where he's going to end up. I'm going to tell you a place I think he should end up. I think something that would work well for both teams. Something that I did see on NFL Live proposed, by the way. But real quick before I do that, I think there's sort of like I don't know. I'm going to use my words carefully because you're Mr. Word Man. Sure. I don't know what, like the poster child, the scapegoat. I mean, there's always like some guy that's put on who just stands like Daniel Jones, for example, is the example of the guy that gets paid too much. At some point, these owners want to draw a line. And for whatever reason, they've chosen Lamar Jackson to be that guy. It could have been Deshaun Watson, who, by the way, probably should have been the guy getting all that guaranteed money. And Deshaun Watson's deal has made it really hard for the Ravens and Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson wants what Deshaun Watson got, all that guaranteed money. And he probably deserves it more than Watson, but they just don't want to give it to him. And part of it is I can somewhat understand it. Again, it is easy to say, look, the NFL is targeting Jackson. The guy's a former MVP, should get everything he should get. But on the flip side, if I'm playing devil's advocate, the guy has been injured the last 2 seasons. So I can also sort of understand where this guaranteed money. So like I'm stuck in the middle, but I think the owners want to make an example of someone. And I think I don't know if it's a racial thing. I think it's more so of an agent thing that he doesn't have an agent.
No, it's about precedent. It's about money.
They want to set a precedence, right?
It's not strict collusion because to collude, you have to have a paper trail of folks, actively talking to each other and saying, hey, don't give him this money. But you can have something. I know that there's a right word for it. I'm not sure what it is. But you can have soft collusion because you can have everybody, not wanting to give out a fully guaranteed contract to a quarterback. And so long as everyone else's interests align to not cross that line in the sand of more fully guaranteed contracts, you don't have to have it on camera or anything. You just have to have a large enough group, and in this case, 31 owners who have the same shared interest of not giving out fully guaranteed contracts in the NFL. So it's not collusion in the sense that there's an active conspiracy more than there is a conjunction of
common understanding.
There you go. Common understanding.
I can't believe that I came up with the word over you, Tom. I am shook it. Just shook it this moment. Mark it down at 1:31 p.m. Wednesday, March 29th. Tom Castleman gets bested by Common on vocabulary. That's a moment right there.
It's just one of those spots because, Arthur Blank, he said the quiet part out loud of, well, it's a different situation how we were pursuing Deshaun Watson as ardently as we were compared to pursuing Lamar Jackson. And I'm looking at him like, as far as availability goes, Lamar Jackson's been more available because he has not been at least somewhat credibly accused of multiple sexual harassments. He has not, of the 2 quarterbacks, guess which one has had not 1 but 2 ACL injuries? It is Lamar Jackson. It's Deshaun Watson who has had ACL issues. So he's been more available. I know he's been missing some games, but he hasn't had the super serious injuries that have really going to sap him of his athleticism, his speed, his ability. So, and I know it's from 2019, but he has an MVP and Deshaun Watson doesn't. So what are we really saying here with, these are different situations when it seems like all of the check marks line up on the Lamar Jackson side of things? So I find it curious that teams are not just that there's not even rumors of teams doing their homework on what it would take to get Lamar Jackson on their team, and there's myriad
Yeah.
reasons for that. But let's
Yeah. I'll
focus
go back
on
to
fit
yeah.
and where he's
Yeah.
best going to end up. I mean, I've got mine in the NFC South. Where are you going with yours?
Yeah. One more real quick point.
Mhm.
Again, the counter argument, maybe teams think Watson's a better passing quarterback, and that's a legitimate debate. But again, I do feel like, and I don't know, it's possible these owners could be on the phone with each other. I don't know that they're going to leave an email and text message chain, but these guys got each other's numbers. They could call them up. I mean,
Mhm.
who's recording these recordings? I mean, I guess it's possible, but if they're on the same page, some states don't even
Yeah.
allow recorded, recordings. So it's not entirely crazy to think about. I'm not saying that's happening, but it's not the craziest thing to think that these guys got on like a conference call and said, "Hey, man, we're gonna lay the law down with Lamar Jackson." I mean, these owners aren't necessarily the most
Scrupulous,
what's scrupulous mean? That's a good vocab.
having morals.
I was gonna say, well, the word I was gonna use was moral people. So perfect.
There you go. Yeah.
It's a cinnamon, right? Cinnamon, not cinnamon.
Synonym.
Synonym. Oh my God, I'm hungry, man.
Mark the tape.
Cinnamon.
134. I've regained the word title.
You've regained the wordsmith. That didn't last long. All right, I'll give you a destination where Lamar Jackson, one that I think could work for him, and it could work for the other quarterback. Could work with both teams. So what's the age-old saying? Sometimes a change of scenery just helps everything. I'm going to propose this Lamar Jackson for Kyler Murray trade. So this is going to be fun because, look, Kyler Murray in Arizona, let's be real, not clicking with his teammates. And part of that is a him issue, but maybe sometimes, kind of taking a moment to look back like, okay, maybe these guys were right. But it's kind of hard once that bridge has been burned. He's a very talented player. I think Baltimore has a good team. I think Lamar Jackson, very talented player. The Cardinals have a good team. I mean, these two teams have been in the playoffs in recent years. I know the Cardinals weren't this last season, but they were 2 years ago. And I know the Niners are a great team, but the rest of the NFC West, all of a sudden with the Rams aging, obviously the Seahawks, I don't know how much I want to buy into them. I mean, the Cardinals could make the playoffs, if they didn't lose all those close games potentially. The Ravens, we've seen them in the playoffs. We saw them almost beat the Bengals in the playoffs, and that's a team that's been in 2 straight AFC title games and a Super Bowl. So they're kind of similar quarterbacks. I mean, I think Lamar Jackson takes care of the ball a little bit better. Maybe Kyler's got a little bit better arm, but they're both kind of that dual threat scrambling quarterback. So that could be a good potential trade. I know the contract, the money, I haven't sat and dug down that deeply. But I look at this way, that could almost be like a way where neither team starts over. Because a lot of times when you get rid of your quarterback, you kind of start over. And that's the whole problem of how these teams get stuck with overpaying their quarterbacks. They don't really want to start over, so they have to reach and pay more than maybe they should in the case of Daniel Jones, for example. So that's what I would like to see. That's what I think would be good for both quarterbacks. Ravens and Cardinals trade Lamar Jackson for Kyler Murray.
Yeah, there's a lot of different options. I think a really plausible one that makes a ton of sense and actually could be the one that actually happens is, in spite of Arthur Blank saying this, the Atlanta Falcons. Because you're telling me you would rather see, what do we have in Desmond Ridder, a 3rd-round quarterback? I mean, it's kind
You
of
like Cincinnati, Tom. You're a Cincinnati guy.
Yeah, but
I know.
I know that that's a huge chasm. I mean, I think Atlanta can be a good fit. Put him with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, actually kind of give them a good passing quarterback to help them fulfill some of that talent. I think that would be a good fit. And the head coach, Arthur Smith, came from Tennessee, where he was running a little bit of a QB option. He really liked having Marcus Mariota in Tennessee and then again in Atlanta. Well, how many X better is Lamar Jackson compared to Marcus Mariota? You could actually have a team that threatens to win the whole NFC South if you go there. I know that I'd go even bigger if we're going to the NFC West. I would go to the 49ers. I mean, the 49ers, they have a bit of an
Wow.
unproven option. You could say, hey, here's Trey Lance, here's Brock Purdy, take a quarterback that you want as a
They have
stopgap. Because I
Sam
think,
Darnold now too.
yeah, like the Ravens want that. I mean, the Ravens are in
Yeah.
this really tricky spot because they just gave like 100 million plus to Roquan Smith, who's a very talented linebacker, but he's
Former
an
Bear.
off the ball linebacker. He's not a pass rusher or a premium position. So uh, when you're making that sort of move, that's a win now move. You're not paying an off ball linebacker just to be on a rebuilding team. So you have to be getting somebody as a good quarterback back. So it could be, you get Desmond Ritter and a couple of firsts from the Falcons. You get Trey Lance and a couple of firsts or, first and some additional picks if you're getting Trey Lance from the 49ers. Getting Mac Jones if and some picks if you're going to New England. So those I think are like the three best spots to go. I think that if Lamar Jackson ends up somewhere besides Baltimore, it's going to be on a sign and trade type deal as opposed to a team making an offer sheet because they know that the Ravens are pretty much just going to match that offer sheet. And at which point, an opposing team has done all the work for them. So those would be my three locations. I think Atlanta the most likely of those, and probably the best fit. But we'll see how this goes. It's still a long way until September. Lamar Jackson currently is without a team. I mean, and quite frankly, he's got the money. I think the Ravens need a quarterback more than Lamar Jackson needs the money. If I'm being perfectly honest, so
Yeah.
we'll see how this ends up.
Two real quick things. I think a lot of it is respect issue. Lamar
That
just
too.
wants respect. I know a lot of times we get caught up in thinking athletes like want money, and everyone wants money. I mean, every
Hmm.
person in some ways is greedy. A lot of it is about respect, though, because you look at this guy got paid this much. I'm not getting paid this much. I'm better than him. So that's a respect issue right there. If he does go to the Falcons, the NFC South gets really interesting because every team in that division seemingly is getting better. I mean, maybe not the
Hmm.
Panthers, but there's still moves to be made. And it's not a good division, but at least every team is like okay. So it could be one of those like weird divisions where everyone's around 500, but no one is like really a playoff contender, but no one's like a lottery pick or like a top 5 pick type contender. Maybe the Panthers are, but we'll see if that happens. Definitely looking forward to seeing what happens with this whole Lamar Jackson case. Real quick on the 49ers, I was
Hmm.
thinking to myself, I forgot what I was going to say, and it came back to me. I did see something on the internet that John Lynch has said that he thinks, obviously the GM, that Brock Purdy deserves to be the starter there. That's what he said. He says that
Hmm.
he's number one. Seems that he's been talking to Shanahan. So if you're talking about Trey Lance as a trading piece, does not seem like the Niners are really interested in Trey Lance. Almost like even when Sam Darnold, they signed Sam Darnold. I'm thinking like, why are they signing Sam Darnold? Almost feels like maybe they're going to move on from Trey Lance because, I mean, look, it's a gamble on paper. If Trey Lance is as good as maybe people thought he was when he got picked third, he would what? Maybe have more upside than Brock Purdy. Personally, I think Brock Purdy is going to be a better NFL player. But if you're
Hmm.
trading between those two, maybe they figure they can get more from Lance. And that's why they brought in Darnold for insurance because that was kind of like a very curious move. I mean, I guess they did have the injury in the title game, but how often do three guys, two starting quarterbacks get hurt in a season? That was kind of fluky. But we'll move on to the MLB, Tom.
Yeah. Yeah, it is baseball season coming up. There's been a whole whirlwind of stuff that has happened in the MLB. I think the biggest story of the offseason has been Carlos Correa signing like 1 point something billion dollars worth of contracts, only to have them not really go through
So
because
many
teams are
teams.
concerned about his knee down the line. So he returns to Minnesota on a I think pretty reasonable deal, a type of deal that if you're a Cubs fan or a Sox fan, you might ask why they weren't in on that. But let's start out with the individual awards really quickly. Breezing through who do we think is going to win the MVP in the American and National League? Same thing for Cy Young. Is it going to be one of the familiar names that we are used to seeing, or do you think there might be a little bit of an upstart, somebody on the rise, kind of like a Dylan Cease, who last year kind of
White
came
Sox.
out of nowhere and was really, really impressive in his almost Cy Young campaign, not actually winning it, but definitely being in that top 2, 3 conversation
Yeah, I actually think he's got like the third best odds, by the way, for
this
Cy
season.
Young
Yeah,
this year. But I'm gonna do it this way if you're all right with this, Tom. AL
sure.
MVP, AL Cy Young, and then we
Yeah,
can do the NO afterwards. So
go
we'll
for it.
do let's do MVP both real quickly, then we'll do Cy Young, then move on to the National League. So for the AL MVP, I'm gonna go a favorite here.
Of
Shohei
course.
Ohtani, plus
Yeah,
190 on
short odds.
DraftKings. I know
Short
that's
odds.
crazy. That's really short odds. I think I'm banking on him staying healthy this year. If he stays healthy, it's very hard not to say he's not the most valuable player, pitching and hitting both. I don't think Aaron Judge hits over 60 home runs again. I mean, that's essentially what it took
Mm,
for him to beat Ohtani. He's going to hit a lot of home runs, but that's a high number. I think teams will pitch around him a little bit more. I know that's hard to do with that Yankee lineup, but it's Aaron Judge. I mean, it's just hard to replicate that season. Sammy Sosa, one of the few guys that has done that multiple years in a row. So I think Ohtani, with the pitching and hitting balance, coming off a World Baseball Classic epic performance, I have a feeling about the Angels. Maybe it's wishful thinking on my part, but I think they get in the playoffs this year. I really do. We'll get to that later. If they get in the playoffs, then he's definitely winning that MVP. No doubt about that. What do you got for AL MVP?
I mean, AL MVP, I'm also going to go with Shohei Ohtani. I mean, it might be recency bias with the World Baseball Classic and how electric he was there, but when healthy, I mean, hitting, running, pitching, he can do it all. I mean, I'm a big fan of his teammate Mike Trout. And how often do you have, arguably the best player of a generation known as another guy's teammate? Shohei Ohtani's been fantastic, and I hope he stays healthy for multiple reasons. One, he is fun to watch. Two, he is going to be a free agent after this season, and we are going to see a frenzy for him if he's available, unlike anything we have ever seen. So for multiple reasons, hopefully Shohei Ohtani is able to stay healthy, able to achieve. I mean, we could see the first like $1 billion man in baseball or something crazy like that, simply because of how amazing he is. So I've got Ohtani as the MVP. Where do you want to go next? Cy Young in the AL or NL MVP?
Yeah, let's do AL Cy Young.
AL Cy Young. I'm going to
Yeah.
go in the same division. I'm going to go with Framber Valdez for Houston.
Mm.
Combination of, he's got really good peripherals and he's on a really good team, which means he's going to get that really not important, but for a casual baseball fan, they look at how many wins do you have. He's going to have all the other numbers around that as well as far as ERA plus goes. But yeah, give me Framber Valdez for the Houston Astros. Top pitcher on probably the best team in the American League.
I think that was before you and I. You were on our Salute Your Sports show, but one of the great
No,
arguments.
I remember Felix Hernandez, CC
Yeah,
Sabathia.
it was
I
Drew
remember
and
that
I.
well.
He was on the CC Sabathia side because he had the wins. I was on Felix Hernandez because the better ERA.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna say. So you're gonna notice a theme with my picks for all these awards.
Are they all
I'm
going to
gonna
be Shohei Ohtani?
No, I'm gonna bank on. Well, that would be fun too. That'd be awesome,
You
actually.
he
I
could
mean, it's
win Cy Young and
possible.
MVP.
It wouldn't be the craziest thing with how good he is. I'm going to bank on guys who've had injury concerns. I'm going to go ahead and wish this into the universe, and I'm going to assume they're healthy. It might be a terrible assumption, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. So for my AL Cy Young, I'm going Jacob deGrom. This guy's ERA the last few years, probably the best in baseball, unhittable in the National League. He's now going to the Rangers, which, by the way, I know these players play each other in interleague. I know this, all that, this, and that, but you face a pitcher a little bit less often when they're in the opposing league. So some of these American League hitters would not have seen Jacob deGrom as much. I think he gets his third Cy Young, first since 2019. Now, he is literally unhittable. Again, maybe a change of scenery, maybe a new team. I know he's missed a lot of time due to injury, but maybe that time, maybe his gotten his arm, back to where it should be. I like Jacob deGrom to win the Cy Young because he's going to get the best ERA. He's going to get the best stats. He won't have the most wins, but if his ERA is so much better than the next closest guy, he's going to go ahead and win it.
Absolutely. Moving over to the National League, I'm going to keep my MVP pick the same as I did last year. I know last year I picked a guy who was on a team that was destined for last place, got traded midseason, and had a little bit of injury issues as well. But I'm going to go with Juan Soto out in San Diego. He is now going to be in the middle of that lineup for the entire season. He is a phenomenal player, in his own right, but with as much protection as he's going to have around him in the lineup, I think he's going to put up huge, huge numbers. And I really like what he and the Padres are going to be doing this season.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a small upset, not major
Mm-hmm.
by any means, but you look at the betting odds, he's like right around the fifth favorite. Some books fourth, some fifth, some sixth, some maybe seventh. I mean, there's differing odds out there.
Sure.
But he's at about 1,500, which is not like, that's not the best odds. Like, he's clearly not like a favorite. And this
Sure.
guy has already won the MVP before. And you're talking about a lineup surrounding him. I'm going to go Freddie Freeman with the Dodgers. Second year with the Dodgers, gets more familiarized in that system, in that ballpark. And I mean, the guy was the 2020 NL MVP, one of the best hitters in the game. Fantastic player. Freddie Freeman, for me, gets that MVP. I mean, the Dodgers will win enough games, so that won't be an issue. I think Freeman wins this thing. Mookie Betts, all these other great players around them. Give me Freddie.
I'll go with Spencer Strider for Atlanta. I think he runs usually with just 2 pitches, but he's had good success in his young career so far. I'm looking at him as a guy who's going to take the next step.
You're talking about Cy Young in the NL?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I say something different?
No, I just went MVP, but you already gave your NL MVP in Soto, so you're good with Cy Young. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. So I'm going with Spencer Strider and Atlanta. I think that they're going to have a really, really strong squad, in similar vein to other Cy Young candidates. So I think that's where I'm going to go on that one. So that brings
I got one more. I got the NL Cy Young too.
Oh, go for it.
I got Justin Verlander. Speaking of guys switching leagues, he's going to be a Met this year. So again, hitters, he's never played in the National League before. Good luck, National League hitters. This man might be my favorite pitcher in baseball. He's got so many sick pitches. 3-time Cy Young Award winner already, including last year, by the way. Him being healthy again, a good lineup with the Mets. I think that Justin Verlander plus 700 odds gets my NL Cy Young, Mr. Verlander.
All right. So that brings us now to picking the divisions, and we'll breeze through this one really quickly because, there's a lot of different divisions to cover. We've also got 3 wild card teams that we're going to pick. So I'm going to, we're going to start out with National League East. So for me, I talked about Spencer Strider and the Braves. I'm going to go with the Braves to win the division. I know that the Mets have invested a lot. They've got 2 top-end starters, but we have seen Max Scherzer not quite always healthy the past couple seasons. Justin Verlander also on the older side of things. He's had some arm issues in the past. So it's one of those things of when is it gonna fall off for them? Basically, when are these guys not going to be as amazing as they once were? The Braves, I think, are a deeper team. I think they have a good young talent and a good mix of veteran talent as well. So I feel a little bit better about going with Atlanta to win the East. But don't worry, Mets are well in the playoff picture for me later on in the show, too.
Yeah, this might be one of the better divisions in baseball, if not the best, because you look at the Mets and Braves.
I think the best. Phillies were in the World Series.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They were tied for the best record last year in the division, Mets and Braves, but it was the Phillies who were actually in the World Series. So you have 3 really good teams, 3 teams, by the way, that I'm going to pick to make the playoffs again. My baseball picks are going to be very boring. I'm going to go very similar to last year. But you know what? That's just what I'm feeling right now. I'm going to go with the Mets, Tom. And with my theme, like I told you, I'm going to bank on guys being healthy because I think if Verlander and Scherzer are healthy the whole season, that might be the 2 best pitchers in the National League, maybe the 2 best in the whole league, period. MLB, certainly 2 top 5 guys. I think those 2 guys are unhittable, pretty good lineup around them. I think Pete Alonso has another big year. So I like the Mets to win the NL East, but I think the Braves and Phillies both will get wild cards. I know I'm giving away my picks, but feeling good on those as well.
Well, arguably the worst division in baseball in the NL Central. I mean, it's kind of hard to pick anybody outside of St. Louis. I mean, if you want to go a little off the beaten path. You could say Milwaukee as kind of the second best team out there, but you look at what Pittsburgh and Cincinnati's doing, not very strong teams. And we're going to see records actually reflect that, because I believe this is the first year where we're not having the weighted schedule of you're playing X many more division games against all it's a more balanced, even schedule across all of baseball. So I think we're going to see, a Cardinals team that can win the Central, but might not win 90 games because they're not going to be able to beat up on Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Cubs could be interesting. I think that's a team to keep an eye on locally, where they have a really solid floor. They don't necessarily have superstars, but they have a really solid team, the type of team that could maybe, quote, surprise and be like an 80, 81, 82 win team this season, if you want to have a good time in the friendly confines. But I think the Cardinals pretty comfortably, adding Wilson Contreras, taking him away from the Cubs. He certainly gives a good bat for St. Louis. I know his pitching differentials aren't necessarily as great when you look at the ERA splits on some of the Cubs pitchers last year, throwing to Contreras as opposed to throwing to other catchers. Numbers are markedly different. So we'll see what effect that has on St. Louis's pitching staff. But as far as a bat goes, he is fantastic for their lineup. So give me the Cardinals in the NL Central.
Yeah, I probably agree it's the worst division in baseball. I mean, I know the Cubs, I think they just signed Nico Horner to a deal. I know they made some moves in the offseason. I'm still not sold on the Cubs by any means. But, I mean, they got a shot to get second or third, but it's a mess of a division. The Brewers have some good pitchers, but hitting is a major issue. I mean, look, Cardinals, Brewers, only two teams over 500 last year in the division. The Cardinal way, the great organization. We got the MVP, Paul Goldschmidt. I don't see how they don't win the NL Central. I'm a Cubs guy, but the Cardinals, I think, have a better club. They just always seem to find a way, and they'll win the NL Central. St. Louis is my pick for sure in that one.
So that brings us to, I think, a very top-heavy National League West. It basically is, pick one of two teams that you like out of the state of California. For me, I'm going to go with the Padres. I think Gavin Lux, his ACL injury in spring training is going to be a significant blow to the Dodgers, especially when you look at all the things they allowed to have happen, basically giving him the full reins. And now you've got a bit of a hole in the middle of your infield with Lux being out, and of course being a really balanced left-handed bat to help your lineup be a little bit less right-hand dependent, which isn't the most important thing, but I think it's definitely something that's going to have an impact on them. And then Clayton Kershaw kind of falls into a similar category of, obvious, future first ballot, should be unanimous Hall of Famer. But we've seen him have inconsistencies with health as well, whereas you look at the Padres, they're the sort of team where, not to say that the Dodgers wouldn't do this, but their owner has talked about investing in this team. And if they have any sort of shortcomings, I have no doubt that they will go out at the trade deadline and spend whatever prospects, whatever money they need to spend to bolster this team. You've got a ton of talent with Soto and Machado and Tatis in the middle of the order. You've got Joe Musgrove, I think, as pitcher. Yeah, you've got Yu Darvish toward the back end of that rotation. You've got a lot of talent throughout this Padres team. So give me San Diego. I'll go with them to win the West.
I feel really good about the Dodgers winning the West over a whole season. This has been the best team in baseball the last 5 years. I know we talk about the Gavin Lux injury, but let's be honest. He was their 7th, 8th best hitter, maybe 9th. I mean, this guy, I know, huge prospect, bright future, but you look at the Dodgers as constructed, he's not one of their key players. I know you never want to lose a guy, but we're not talking about one of their main guys. We're not talking about Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts. I mean, they've got maybe the best lineup in baseball. You look at the stats last couple of years, they've been top in the league in ERA, top in the league in runs, top 2 or 3 in both. I think they've got better pitchers than the Padres personally. Urias is going to be amazing. Again, hoping Kershaw's healthy, but their rotation is so deep, even if he's not. The Dodgers, I mean, really, you look at the last 5 years, if we're being honest, the Dodgers and Astros are in a class of their own. I know the Padres have those three big stars, Machado, Tatis, Soto. I know Tatis got suspended last year.
Mhm.
Those three bats are great, but the Dodgers have a lot more depth for me. More starting pitchers, more hitters, over 100 and 62 game season. I just don't see how the Padres could win that division. I think the Dodgers are simply a better team over a whole long season.
Yeah, and also I forgot Padres also picking up Xander Bogaerts to make their team
That's not bad
even
either.
better. You know, that's a pretty solid squad. So in terms of the wild card teams, I think we're pretty much going to have like a mixed match of the same teams because you know I went with Padres winning the West. Obviously, I've got the Dodgers grabbing one of those wild card spots. Same thing with Braves versus Mets, and then looking at it, I think it's pretty easily the Phillies. I think that we have I mean, baseball's always going to prove us wrong in some sense. We're going to have a team that kind of
100%.
surprises. I don't know if we had the Phillies last year as a wild card team with our preseason predictions, but you look at the Central, maybe the Brewers make some noise, but again, without that
No,
weighted schedule, you
no.
know, they're going to be facing a lot more NL and AL or a lot of East and West teams within that league. And then yeah, like I'm not particularly impressed with the Giants or the Diamondbacks or the Rockies or even Miami or the Nationals. Certainly, it feels like the Nationals aren't even really fielding a full legit baseball club. So I think pretty solidly that's you've got 7 teams that fit right at the top of the National League, and then I think that's where the table kind of falls off to the next tier of teams that you know can be decent, can be good, but certainly I don't think are going to be great.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, I've got the Braves. They won the World Series 2 years ago. They get my wild card because I'm picking the Mets. Like you said, you picked the Padres in the NL West. I picked the
Hmm.
Dodgers. I'm picking the Padres. Tatis, Machado, Juan Soto. That's a great lineup. Phillies made the World Series last year. I know Bryce Harper's out for the start of the season, but they still got Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner. Harper's going to be back at some point. So you kind of said it. The weighted schedule as well helps. But I mean, on paper, it does feel like the 7 playoff teams do make a lot of sense. Again, the NL East could be all sorts of crazy. But yeah, I'm going to go with pretty much. I think we have the same 7 teams in the playoffs. I know
Yeah.
that we have a couple, division versus wild card disagreements, but do agree with everything you said.
Hmm. Yeah, on the American League side of things, this is where things I think are going to get a little bit more interesting, where we're not going to necessarily have as much consensus. Because starting out in the East, I'm going to go with the Toronto Blue Jays
I
over
thought
the
you would.
Yankees. I can foresee some regression coming for the Yankees. And in fact, I'm going to jump out because I know that you might catch this later, but I'm going to put it in broad up on the marquee. I don't have the Yankees making the playoffs this year. I know that they have Garrett Cole, phenomenal pitcher. I know they picked up Carlos Rodon, who, when he's healthy, has been a phenomenal pitcher, but I see regression for the Yankees. I mean, consider what the Yankees were if you take Aaron Judge and his historic season off the table there. Yankees are kind of sort of an average team. You know, I think that they were saved by a really Herculean heroic effort by Aaron Judge, and that's the sort of thing where there's variance. And there was this article that I read way back in December on the Insider, written by, let me pull up the author real quick, Bradford William Davis. So if you want to check this out, or if any of our viewers want to check this out, and it's about this concept of a Goldilocks ball, which is kind of like the perfect size and perfect density. And it was used in basically 3 kinds of events: postseason games, including the World Series, All-Star Game and Home Run Derby, and regular season games that had some sort of like commemorative a stamp on the ball. And the reason, ostensibly, why these balls would be used in these sorts of games is we want to see more home runs, we want to see more scoring, that type of thing. Outside of those 3 events, there is one other place where this baseball was used: Yankees regular season games. So I'm not saying that MLB was necessarily trying to, goose up this home run chase with Aaron Judge chasing Roger Maris and winning the AL or hitting the AL home run record. But I do certainly think that's a sort of coincidence that might not be showing up this season. So I see regression on Aaron Judge and the number of home runs that he hits. I see a bit of regression on the rest of the Yankees who benefited peripherally from that as well. So lineup not quite as good. I don't trust their pitching as much. I've got Blue Jays winning the division, and I'm going to have the Yankees missing the playoffs entirely.
I'm going to go completely the other way. I think this is the breakout year for the Yankees. I think we haven't seen them in the World Series for so many years in a row. I think specifically a guy that I think is going to be great this season is Giancarlo Stanton. I think we've almost forgotten how great he is. He's almost gotten overshadowed by Aaron Judge. And by the way, speaking of Yankee Stadium, Anthony Rizzo, a left-handed hitter, he was great last year as well. That short porch, Judge, Stanton, and Rizzo. That is maybe the best lineup in all of baseball. Rodon's a lefty. Garrett Cole's a great pitcher. You only really need 2 or 3 great pitchers with that lineup. I think it's the Yankees' year, actually. It's funny you say all that. I mean, a lot of it is feeling. It's hard to say, but I think that I love their lineup. I mean, Torres as well was really good. They've actually had a lot of injuries the last couple of years. You talk about regression. If they can stay healthy, this team would have been better the last few years. They stay healthy this year. It's a very dangerous team. I do like Vlad Guerrero Jr. with the Blue Jays. They got Bo Bichette, I guess, Jr. They got, all these young guys, former MLB players. But I think the Yankees are just simply too good and win that AL East. So they'll have a run this year. I'm the opposite of you. We're almost the same in the NL. Very different already to start in the AL here.
Very different. And we might be different on the AL Central, although being in Chicago, we might both go homer on this one. You look at the betting odds, the Chicago White Sox are the 3rd favorite to win the American League Central. I'm ready to be heard again.
Let's do it.
I'm going to go with the White Sox. I think Lucas Giolito is going to have a bounce back season. I think Dylan Cease is going to continue his ascension to being one of the top pitchers in the American League. And I think as much as folks say a manager does or doesn't really matter to the day in, day out outcomes of a particular game, for all intents and purposes, it feels like it's night and day with Pedro Grifol and what he's doing in spring training versus what Tony La Russa was doing the past couple of years in spring training. I mean, the White Sox basically had a hall pass to not necessarily try all that hard in previous years. So I think that, Grifol's going to be focused in a lot on the little things to winning baseball games. I mean, he said as much in Kansas City that, these guys aren't hustling as much today. We can go ahead and take an extra base. We can do the little things that are going to help turn into a win. I think if the White Sox are tightening all that up, I think they have enough pitching. I think that they have probably the best hitting if all those guys are locked in. I'm concerned a little bit about, Luis Robert not necessarily progressing as much. Can Eloy Jimenez remain healthy? Same thing with Yoan Moncada, but I think there's enough bounce back with the entire White Sox team that they'll be able to overtake a Twins team that is pretty solid and a Guardians team that is also pretty solid, but certainly took advantage of the fact that the White Sox, for whatever reason, were not playing up to their talent level. So I think the talent's going to win out this year. I think the White Sox are going to win the division, and everything will be nice and happy this summer in the city of Chicago.
Yeah, Tom, actually, I agree with you. I've got the White Sox in the Central as well. I may call it maybe a homer pick. I'm a Cubs and Sox guy, but 500 ball last year. I think kind of like the Yankees, a lot of injuries. You look at the last couple of years, a lot of injuries for the White Sox. Again, knock on wood. A lot of what I'm projecting is on guys staying healthy, but Eloy Jimenez could be MVP level. Tim Anderson, a really good hitter. Dylan Cease, like you mentioned, could be a Cy Young candidate. Had a big pickup, one that it's kind of close to home for me, talking about my reporting background. My first job in TV in Arkansas. I didn't cover the Razorbacks regularly in person. I worked in Jonesboro, Arkansas, covered Arkansas State, but did Razorback highlights every show, football, baseball, basketball. They picked up Andrew Benintendi, who is a 5-tool player, fantastic hitter, really good fielder. He was, by the way, when I was doing highlights for the Hogs, he was the college baseball player of the year. So I've seen enough of this man playing great baseball. Moncada and Roberts, a lot of it's going to go down to those guys. Can they take that next step in their progression? Because they're very talented players. We've seen moments. We haven't seen consistency. I think they're going to get better. I don't know if they're going to be consistent, but they'll be better. But I think Anderson and Jimenez might play at more MVP level. Dylan Cease is the ace, and Benintendi, I mean, that's a great pickup for the White Sox. So give me Chicago to win the AL Central, which I don't know. I don't really buy Cleveland or Minnesota being that great. Again, I think they took advantage of a bad division last year. I think the White Sox take advantage and win the Central this year.
That brings us to the American League West, where home of the reigning World Series champions with the Houston Astros. I see no reason to go against them. I mean, they're still really, really talented, really, really deep. I mean, you say, okay, we'll wave goodbye to Justin Verlander and still have a rotation that can knock you down. So I like the Astros. I mean, if you look at like the preseason power rankings on ESPN, they have the Astros as the number one team in all of baseball. So even though they're letting some of these veteran pitchers go, they've got great young talent. I talked about Framber Valdez earlier. You got Christian Javier, Hunter Brown, some younger guys that are kind of coming up and filling in those spots. So yeah, and adding Jose Abreu, of course, giving themselves a really, really good first baseman as well. So you add that to an already deep and talented lineup. You know, there's no reason I see for the Astros to not win this division.
Yeah, I got to agree completely. I mean, I love to throw out the stats, but simply I mean, again, I said it earlier. You look at the last 5 years, Astros and Dodgers, they've been the class of baseball. They do lose Verlander, which worries me a little bit in the playoffs, if I'm being honest. But for a regular season in an AL West, which isn't that great if we're being real, they should definitely win. They have probably the best lineup in the division, the best pitchers as well. AL West goes to the defending World Series champion Houston Astros, which we don't want to cheer for them. That scandal was obviously a mess, but they proved it last year, even without the cheating, that they're a really good ball club, period.
Absolutely. Well, you talk about the AL West not being that strong. Actually, one of my top teams for wild card spots, actually the Seattle Mariners, a team that has a lot of balance, has a young budding star in Julio Rodriguez.
I want to correct myself. AL West is actually pretty good. I don't know why I said that.
Yeah.
I do like, I'm looking at my wild card picks. I do like the AL West. But I don't know that there's a team that is as good as them per se.
Correct.
But
yeah, there definitely is. There are tiers in the AL West to be certain. I mean, Luis Castillo, they've got him for the whole season now. He was absolutely instrumental in them making the playoffs last season. So I think they've got good to decent pitching to balance a nice lineup as well. I think Seattle's a team that's not going to get a ton of attention because it's way up in the Pacific Northwest. But they're a team that we're going to be hearing about come October. So that's one for me. I kind of want one from each division because I'm actually going to go with the Minnesota Twins. Bringing back Carlos Correa was huge for them. And, this is kind of opposite of the National League, where you can say, okay, the West and the East has, all of the good teams. You can make credible arguments for a lot of different teams to make the playoffs. But give me the Minnesota Twins as a wild card team, and then give me the Tampa Bay Rays. I mean, they just always seem to find a way to do things. I know that with Tyler Glass now, he's going to be missing the start of the season, but you still have a ton of talent. You've got Shane McClanahan, who was your best pitcher last year. You've got Randy Arozarena, Wander Franco, a phenomenal player on the rise. So give me the Rays to grab that last playoff spot. Not necessarily in that order, but for me, I'm saying Mariners, Rays, Twins.
I'm very torn about my AL wildcard picks. I have a few things written down. I'm still not confident in any of them. So my first pick, the one that I am very confident in, is the Toronto Blue Jays. I don't have them in the AL East. They have so many young stars: Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, George Springer. They're a very good ball club. Vlad Guerrero Jr., by the way, improved his defense greatly. We talk about MVP candidates. I know Otani, Trout, Judge get mentioned, but this man is a legitimate MVP candidate in the American League. He's maybe a top 5 player in baseball. He's phenomenal. Blue Jays are great. I feel really good about the Blue Jays making the wild card. For my other spot, I don't know what it is. I don't feel good about the AL Central this year. I don't think the Guardians, I almost called them the Indians. It's the Guardians. I was about to say Indians, and I'm like, no, Guardians. I don't think there's going to be a wild card team out of the Central. I've got 3 teams written down here for 2 spots. And I might just go ahead and mix it up just to have fun, because I have written down Rays, Mariners, and Angels. That's my look, it's wishful thinking, but I want to see Otani and Trout in the playoffs. I want to see them healthy. I want to see something in that Angel squad, something light a fire on those guys. I know the lineup's not there. I know maybe the rotation's not as great, but I'm hoping that maybe we see both guys play every game this year or close to it. And it's just the wishful thinking. Realistically, I would say the Rays and Mariners would be the ones I put in, but I'm going to put the Angels in as the wild card spot. Why, Tom? Because I want to. Why not? I've went chalk. Might as well pick an upset. Want to see something that would be good for baseball. Otani and Trout in the playoffs, which in a short series could be dangerous. I'll be honest. Originally, I had the Mariners written down here. I had Mariners, Julio Rodriguez, one of the best baseball stars. I know they made the wild card last year. They won a lot of close games. And I was going to say the Rays will miss the playoffs. They've been so good so many years in a row. They play in a great division. And that was going to be my argument, that the Rays finally missed the playoffs. But I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to say Rays finished like a game ahead of the Mariners. Let's go Tampa in the playoffs, because I'm looking at the AL West. I'm like, well, I just said in the last segment they're not that good, which I did misspeak. But I'm like, are they good enough to get 3 wild card teams? I don't know. So I'm going to have fun with it. I'll put the Angels in, and I'll put the Rays in, and then on the Mariners on the outside looking in.
All right, sounds good. We'll just really quickly go over our World Series picks. For me, I am going to go with the San Diego Padres topping the Toronto Blue Jays in the World Series. I think these are 2 teams that have great balanced lineups, that have, good, not necessarily overly heralded pitching, but certainly talented and deep. This is a series I think can go 7 games. It's going to be really, really fun if we get to that point. I mean, any World Series that we get to, except maybe for the last. I didn't really think that Houston-Philly was going to go super deep, and Philly actually surprised a little bit. But I think, these are 2 of the top teams in both of their leagues. Give me Padres over Blue Jays.
Yeah, I'm going to have fun with this. This, again, very different than what you're picking, because you didn't pick either team to win the division. You didn't pick one of them to even make the playoffs. I'm going to go Subway Series.
Subway Series. There you
Subway
go.
Series, Mets, Yankees. Yeah, that'd be nuts, man. I think we have those great power hitters, Judge, Stanton, Rizzo. The Yankees haven't been in the World Series in a long time. I think they finally break through. But I have the Mets winning it, because I love Justin Verlander. I love Max Scherzer. I think they stay healthy. I think they get it done. Mets over Yankees. I think it was, 2000? We had a Subway Series. The Yankees winning. I think the Mets win this go-around. Give me New York to win the whole thing. Which, by the way, I think I might have picked them last year, too. Or maybe they were an upset team. I can't remember.
Possibly.
I would have picked either New York, LA, or Houston. And that's who I would pick this year, too, by the way. If not either of the New York teams, I would pick the Dodgers or Astros. But at some point, those teams have to lose,
Absolutely. So that takes us now to Locks of the Week, where I believe as a show we were 500, which is good.
Yeah, not good for me. I've been on this run of going 2-1 when I bet NBA. I went to the college well, and it was a disaster, Tom. That's why I'm not going college. I'm telling you, I bet outside of our show, and a lot of times what I don't bet on the show does better than what I bet on the show. And I've been absolutely on fire betting on the NBA, absolutely ice cold betting on college. So I'm staying away from the madness, which I was 0-3 with last week, by the way. I had UCLA -1.5 over Gonzaga. Gonzaga winning 79-76 on that crazy three. Arkansas +4 versus UConn. Yeah, that did not go well. UConn wiped the floor with them. This one I got barbecued on. Princeton +10 versus Creighton. Creighton winning by 11. Princeton missing a free throw late in that game. Given how little time there was in the game, given that all the subs were in, had Princeton made that free throw, I would have at least gotten a wash because they would run the clock out. You were great on the other hand. You had two opposite picks to me. You got the Zags and UConn covering, and you had FAU Tennessee under 130.5. You were correct, 127 points in that game. What you got this week, Tom?
All right, so for this week, this is going to be the last time in a long time I'm touching on college basketball, so I'm going to hope to keep the good feelings rolling.
You're doing good?
I already mentioned, well, I mean, week 1 I was 1-2, which
you were good last week.
I'm gonna ride with the UConn Huskies. They've got a 5.5 point edge on the Miami Hurricanes. I mean, the Hurricanes have won their games fairly handily, but as you mentioned, UConn's closest game has been by 15 points in the entire tournament, especially clobbering a squad like Gonzaga. And the reason why I say that, the reason why that's significant is because Gonzaga and Miami are actually very, very similar teams. Gonzaga, number 1 in offensive efficiency. Miami is 5th. However, Gonzaga, 74th in defensive efficiency. Miami, 104th in defensive efficiency. UConn has shown that they can outscore a lot of different teams. The key difference is they're going to outdefend as well. And that's going to be, I think, the biggest margin in this game. So give me UConn -5.5. Florida Atlantic treated me well with the under. So give me Florida Atlantic and San Diego State under 131.5. San Diego State, not a particularly strong scoring team. FAU has shown that they can win some low scoring games as well. So give me that number. And then I'm going to go over to the National Invitational Tournament because their championship is coming up tomorrow. And speaking of FAU, we've got not one but two more Conference USA teams matching up against each other. The North Texas Mean Green against the UAB Dragons. Looking at everything here, UAB has won their most recent matchup by 7 in the Conference USA tournament, but in the regular season, North Texas won both matchups. They won by 3 in February. They won by 11 back in January. So coming into this matchup as underdogs, I'll take the North Texas Mean Green +2 to win the National Invitational Tournament. I think they're going to win outright. I'll take the +2 cover.
I like it. NIT action. Haven't talked that on the show at all. So I'm going back to the NBA well here, Tom. By the way, I probably agree with all your picks, if I'm being honest. Might be another 3-0 week for you, but maybe I just put a jinx on you. Who knows? But I'm going to the what'd you say?
I said you tried to last week text in the group about the mortgage lock, trying to jinx me. You may have done it. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I've got all NBA card. I just double checked my phone to make sure the lines are updated. Grizzlies -4 against the Clippers tonight. Grizzlies are rolling, Tom. 7 straight wins. They're 33-5 at home. No Paul George for the Clippers. Grizzlies should win by 5 or more. They're not sure. The injury report, not sure if Ja Morant will play or not tonight. Has not mattered. With or without Ja, they've been great. In the regular season, at least, you look at the last couple years, I don't have the exact records in front of me, but you and I both know they've been really good even without Ja Morant. So I think the Grizzlies should win by 5 or more. I got Suns -4.5 over the T-Wolves on BetMGM. Reports are that Kevin Durant, coming back from injury tonight, will play in the game. Minnesota dealing with some injuries. Towns and Edwards may or may not play, but Phoenix, a much better home team. They've won 2 out of 3 against Minnesota this year, both times by 9 or more. Durant, by the way, in his first game back last time, coming off injury, did really good. He's a guy who seems to do really well. He may play a few less minutes, but he'll be huge in that game. Suns by 5 or more over the Wolves. Then lastly, got a little over on the NBA. Blazers over Kings, or Blazers Kings over 235 points. Last time they played, we had 133, 116, 249 points. Neither team plays much defense. The Kings score a lot, 221 a game. Look for a lot of points in the Blazers-Kings game tonight, Tom Castleman.
All right, that all sounds good. Do you have any trivia? I've got one that's from like a little bit back in the tournament. But given that Gonzaga's not really in it, I'm cool if I don't throw out this piece of trivia. Do you got anything?
Right. Yeah, I have this one from last week. So
Sure.
You're not going to particularly probably like either of these guys, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. What two college basketball coaches have led three different teams to the Final Four?
Oh, that's Rick Pitino and John Calipari.
Yeah, good job, Tom. That was quick. The reason why I had this last week is because we didn't have in the rundown Pitino going to St. John's. Didn't want to touch on that in the show, but obviously we were well behind on time. We skipped trivia, but Pitino, Providence, Kentucky, Louisville, Calipari, Memphis, Kentucky, Massachusetts. That's a good one. If you want to hit your one real quick, I
really like Pitino's line about how he wants to take St. John so he can get Jan Calipari off of his his resume.
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
Mine here. I took a screenshot because I saw this. Now I got to scroll back through. But in this tournament, Drew Timme scored 20 plus points now in his career in 9 separate games. So, can you name the other, or not name the other players? Just tell me how many other players have scored 20 or more points in 9 tournament games over the course of their entire career?
Yeah, I think I saw the graphic. So I think he got a 10th, which is the most ever. And then he had, I think there's like 5 guys had 9 or something like that.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So you got that.
I saw the same graphic.
I would say like go ahead and name them, but I mean some of these are going to be really, really tough to get. So. Yeah.
We're good.
Statements of the week.
Yeah,
I'll get the ball rolling. I know we touched on NFL a little bit, but there's talk now about the NFL possibly toward the end of the season flexing.
Yeah, I saw that.
Thursday night football games, moving games from Sunday to Thursday, which I mean it's ridiculous. I think Thursday night football games are hard enough on players as is without having them possibly moving schedules forward and backward. Well, that's the thing. They already have the money from Amazon. And I mean, no love lost between me and Amazon, but
it's all about the money.
We've had 10 years of Thursday night football product. If you went into this and made the decision as Amazon that we are going to carry all of these games, I don't feel sorry for you if you're saying, oh, these games aren't all that great. We've had 10 years of Thursday night football not being a really strong, solid product. So if you went out and paid special money to get it, you deserve what you are getting. From a player safety standpoint, I think it's really tough on the players, especially that late in the season. It's also, I can understand flexing a noon game to Sunday night football or something along those lines, but let's think about you're affecting 1/8 of the league. Not just the teams, but also the fan bases. I mean, there are going to be folks that are season ticket holders or say, hey, that's right around the holidays for Christmas. I got you tickets to go watch, say, I don't know, the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday. They got flexed to Thursday night football. All of a sudden, little Timmy's got school the next day. You've just thrown a whole wrench into all sorts of people's plans for the game, especially if it's something along the lines of, hey, I live in Iowa. Or I live in Nebraska and I'm going to travel to Kansas City. Now I have to change hotels. I have to change flights potentially. I have to take time off work that I didn't think I would have to take. This is a horrible idea that's really only aimed at serving television audiences and aimed at serving one television provider or one streaming provider more accurately. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm going to use this to kind of pivot to a second point about Thursday night football. Thursday night football should absolutely be set up in a way that the teams that are playing on Thursday night have a bye week the week prior. So you're not having a Sunday game with only a couple of days of rest leading into Thursday. If we want to talk about player safety, and also adding football to the calendar, because I could conceivably see the NFL looking to add games to other days of the week. You're going to have to build in bye weeks to make sure that, yeah, the health level, it's not a statistically significant difference in terms of injury on Thursday night football versus your run of the mill other games of the week. But we certainly see a difference in the quality of product and the quality of play. If you want to provide a better product to your provider, to Amazon, give the guys an extra couple of days to prepare, give it so that they have a bye week leading into Thursday, and you just sandwich it with basically 2 mini buys or 2 half buys. That is the absolute, I think, best way of handling that sort of thing. Because outside of, Thanksgiving and outside of the first day of the season where, traditionally that's been Thursday night football, now that we're having it every week, we might have to do something where we say, hey, we're kicking off the season on a Thursday night, and then Thursday night football will return in October once we start having bye weeks. I think that's going to be the most significant way of doing things. And then similar toward the end of the season, that after Thanksgiving, maybe that caps Thursday night football so that at the end of the season, everybody's playing on the same day. So there's no competitive disadvantage of we're going for a playoff spot, but we're coming off a really, really short week, and that can impact how we're performing type of thing. I think that's the best holistic overall solution. But I think just really weak move on the NFL to even consider flexing, especially when they can be doing other things to improve the product outside of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I completely agree with everything you just said there. I mean, really good point about the travel. This is my
Little
gripe
Timmy.
with particularly what's up.
Think about little Timmy. Little Johnny wants to go to the game. Little Susan. They want
little Tam. Little Tam Castleman. Little Tom. No, I agree. I couldn't agree more. It's all about the kids, and this is why I'm so upset at the NBA now, because all these guys rest, all this load management. Then you have a guy like, Paul George gets injured anyway all the time. What is the load management? I mean, Durant's been load managed. He gets injured all the time anyway. So I just don't think it works. But, that's a different argument aside. Couldn't agree more. I mean, this game is about the fans. You can't be ruining people's, weeks. And I actually think this is about as on point as anything you've ever said, Tom, because there's nothing I can disagree with. I think
every now and then a blind squirrel finds an acorn.
I think your solution for fixing Thursday night football is fantastic, both for player safety, game quality, etc. And here's the thing that they can do. I mean, obviously put the bye weeks. I agree with you. Don't have them go Sunday to Thursday. But the other alternate is just schedule better Thursday games, and you might be able to convince the teams if you tell them they get the bye week. I think that's what makes these teams upset about it. So implement your plan and just schedule better Thursday night football games. I mean, that's
there
it.
You go.
I mean, what, the Bears and Washington were on Thursday nights? You couldn't tell me that going into the season, you thought the Bears and Washington was a great Thursday night game. I mean, come on. Just make the schedule better. You can't flex these games. Agree with everything you said. My statement, usually I go pretty bold, something out there. This is not really a bold statement at all, but this is a suggestion to Major League Baseball. And I'm not the first. I won't be the last to make this. But Shohei Ohtani set to become an MLB record $65 million man, including endorsements, $30 million on the contract. I am happy that there's more endorsements out there, that they're getting this guy more out there. Some of that, though, is his own endorsement. This man, Shohei Ohtani, needs to be put out there as much as Mahomes, LeBron, Curry. And I'll give you a perfect example. I know Ohtani doesn't speak English to the press. He's the more quiet guy. But the GOAT, Lionel Messi, off a 3-goal game yesterday, one of the quietest athletes in the world, but he still does a lot of endorsements, does a lot of commercials. Everyone knows who Leo Messi is, despite not being a big personality, despite not being cocky, despite not being in the media talking about himself. Ohtani needs to be put out there even more. Look, I prefer, if I'm being honest, Tom, personally, I prefer the NFL and NBA to the MLB. But Ohtani is such a big star that I would watch Ohtani. I would turn on a game to watch him pitch and watch him hit. He is talent-wise right up there with maybe a little bit lower than Mahomes, but up there with, Curry, LeBron, Giannis in that Mahomes ballpark. You know how I feel about Mahomes. I mean, I think he's the best football player ever, but talent-wise, he's somewhere in that scope of, look, he's the guy in his sport. He's a guy we've never seen before. He's a guy that I don't care, whatever. Maybe he doesn't speak English, uses an interpreter. I don't care. You got to put this guy front and center. This man needs to be all over baseball, ESPN, Fox, FS1. Run the heck out of Ohtani until you start annoying people, because people need to know about this man. He is great for the game of baseball. So they're already making strides, but they could do even more. Ohtani should be everywhere. When we hear baseball, I want to hear the name of Shohei Ohtani, because he is that legendary type player.
I absolutely agree. I would actually put him in a category above all the guys you listed above Patrick Mahomes, because what Shohei Ohtani is doing is kind of sort of akin to if Patrick Mahomes was quarterback on one side and then goes out there and is playing safety or cornerback or something on the other side. Shohei Ohtani is doing two completely separate things at an elite level, which we have never really seen in any sport before. I know with basketball, you're playing, both offense and defense. So I get that from the perspective of, that's how LeBron and Giannis and all these other guys can be great. But in terms of baseball, being such a specialized kind of sport, the fact that he's able to pitch at the level he does and hit at the level that he does, and if you put him in the field, he would probably be a pretty darn good fielder as well. I completely agree. He needs to be the poster child, well on his way. I mean, he's the face of MLB The Show 2023.
Yeah, they're making moves. They're making the strides.
Keep promoting him. I mean, he did a lot of that himself as well with the World Baseball Classic. So yeah, absolutely, he's a one-of-one athlete. He's the truest definition of a unicorn that we have in sports today.
Yeah, and all his starts should be on national TV. I know that's the tricky part again. He gets ruled out.
Pacific
Talk
Coast
about
time,
flexing. Yeah. He doesn't always start. Maybe he should start more games, but yeah. Anyways, that's going to do it for us this week. We may be skipping the show next week, but we'll be back soon. A lot of NBA talk going forward. We have a lot of NBA talk, playoffs around the corner. That'll be a big talking point in the weeks to come. We're actually, believe it or not, less than a month away from the NFL draft. So that's going to be something that will be a big talking point as well. Obviously, the whole Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, that's going to provide some fun too. But thank you, Tom. Thank you to all the listeners and viewers. We'll be back soon, and have a great day.